Maya Thompson is 28 years old, a woman of substance, a woman who, in a world obsessed with fame, wealth, and fleeting appearances, is often overlooked. Yet it is in this quiet anonymity that Maya thrives. She is not one to seek attention, nor is she concerned with the superficial measures of success that so many others chase. Her life, by all outward appearances, could seem simple, but it is, in fact, filled with depth, meaning, and a quiet confidence that most people would overlook if they weren't paying close attention. Maya's world revolves around words. Words that create worlds, words that tell stories, words that shape ideas. She works as a freelance writer, pouring her heart into her work with a passion that few ever truly understand. Her work is not defined by a paycheck, nor by the fame that can sometimes accompany success. No, Maya's creations are born from the deep well of her soul, her quiet reflections on the world around her, and her desire to make an impact through the stories she tells. Whether it's for magazines, blogs, or websites, Maya's writing is a reflection of who she truly is, a woman who values authenticity over appearances. Maya had never been one for the glitz and glamour of high society. While others reveled in the spotlight, indulged in luxury, or were driven by the pursuit of wealth, Maya found her contentment in the simpler things. The gentle hum of a quiet cafe where she could lose herself in the pages of a good book. The warmth of a well-brewed cup of coffee on a rainy morning. The genuine conversations with friends, the ones that had substance and meaning, not bound by the constraints of time or expectation. Maya was the kind of person who treasured real connections, those that transcended the surface-level interactions most people were used to. Maya's life was a deliberate quietness. It was a life that flowed, not with the frantic pace of the modern world, but with a deep and steady rhythm. It was a life shaped by the choices she made, not based on what society expected of her, but based on what she needed to be content. A simple walk in the park, a cup of tea shared with an old friend, an evening curled up with a book, these were the things that filled Maya's heart. She didn't feel the need for extravagance or recognition. Her sense of accomplishment came from knowing she was true to herself, from knowing she had the ability to express her thoughts and connect with others through her writing. Maya had always been a dreamer, even as a child. Growing up in a quiet neighborhood, she wasn't surrounded by wealth or fame. Her family didn't own much, but they had everything they needed: love, warmth, and the security of knowing they could count on each other. It was there, in the small confines of that home, that Maya first realized the power of stories. The way a well-written tale could transport you to another world. The way words, strung together carefully, could connect hearts across time and space. Maya didn't dream of fame. She didn't dream of riches. She dreamed of writing stories that mattered. Maya had carved out a life for herself that didn't rely on the world's definition of success. She didn't need to climb the corporate ladder or chase after the hollow promise of wealth. Her success was measured in the satisfaction of knowing that her words resonated with others, that her writing made a difference, even if it was just to one person. She had peace, she had contentment, and she had the love of a close-knit group of friends who valued her for who she was, not for what she could offer. But even in this quiet life, there are moments that disrupt the calm, moments that challenge the very things we hold dear. Maya had no idea that one simple moment, one seemingly inconsequential event, would set into motion a series of events that would forever change the way she viewed herself and the world around her. It all started when Maya received an invitation, a message from a magazine she had written for in the past, inviting her to stay at the Regent Palace Hotel, one of the most exclusive, high-end hotels in the city. At first, she was skeptical. This wasn't the kind of place she usually stayed, but it was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. A chance to unwind, perhaps, and reflect on her latest work in a luxurious setting. Little did Maya know, this simple invitation, this unremarkable moment, would change everything. It would test the very foundation of her beliefs, her sense of self, and the world she thought she understood. For Maya, this was just another trip. But for those around her and for the hotel staff that would meet her, it was a moment that would ignite something far greater than she could ever imagine. Then there's Alex, Maya's husband, though calling him just a businessman would be an understatement. At 32, Alex Thompson was a self-made billionaire, but his success wasn't born from chance or inheritance. It was forged in the fires of relentless ambition, boundless innovation, and an unyielding drive to change the world around him. And known for his genius in the tech industry, Alex revolutionized the way people interacted with technology. A mind for innovation, a keen eye for opportunity, and a willingness to take risks, these qualities made him the visionary he was. From a young age, Alex recognized the untapped potential in the tech world, seizing every opportunity to make his mark. What began as a small startup in his college dorm had blossomed into an empire, with millions of people around the globe using the products and services he created. Despite his wealth, Alex never flaunted his success. He wasn't one to fill his life with empty displays of power or vanity. In a world that often saw wealth as the ultimate symbol of success, Alex stood apart. His love for Maya wasn't built on material things or status. It was rooted in something far more valuable: respect, loyalty, and a love that transcended the superficial. Alex had built an empire, but it was his integrity that made him a true standout. He didn't need to prove himself to anyone. He was already secure in his success. He wasn't one to boast or try to impress. Instead, he valued authenticity. The way he treated people, whether they were executives in boardrooms or staff at a hotel, was always with respect. It was this humble strength, this quiet assurance, that made Alex so beloved by those who worked with him, and more importantly, by Maya. Maya was his anchor in a world that often felt like a race to the top. Amidst the high-stakes meetings, the endless deals, and the constant pressure to outperform, Maya provided the balance he needed. She reminded him of what truly mattered: not the material things, not the accolades or the recognition, but the love they shared. For Alex, Maya was the one constant in a world of change. She was the one who grounded him, the one who loved him not for what he could give her, but for who he was without the titles, without the wealth. Alex had built his fortune through hard work, intelligence, and foresight. But it was his quiet moments with Maya that he treasured the most. They shared a bond based on deep respect for each other's values, respect for the love that had blossomed between them. It was a love that transcended material wealth, one that found joy in the simplest moments: a shared laugh, a quiet evening at home, or even a walk through the city together. In a world that constantly pushed them to achieve more, to chase after the next big thing, Alex and Maya had something more enduring, a deep, abiding connection that wasn't defined by the world's expectations, but by their own. Alex didn't need the world to know his worth. He already knew. And when it came to Maya, he had nothing to prove. They had something real, something deeper than the material world could ever offer. One evening, Maya found herself traveling for a short work assignment. Her first time staying at the Regent Palace Hotel, a place where the rich and famous stayed. Her reservation had been made weeks in advance, confirmed twice to ensure there were no issues. Yet as she arrived, standing in front of the towering glass building, it felt like something was off. The grand, shining hotel loomed above her with its marble floors and golden accents, but the building's imposing presence was colder than she expected. It felt distant, far from the warmth and comfort of the life she was used to. This wasn't her world. This wasn't her place. Maya stepped out of the modest taxi, her suitcase in hand, her simple, unassuming attire standing in stark contrast to the extravagant surroundings. As she walked toward the entrance, a knot formed in her stomach, an uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. She didn't belong here, or perhaps it was that she felt like she wasn't meant to. Yet she pushed the thought away. She was here for work. She had a reservation. This would be fine. Inside, the lobby gleamed with opulence, from the polished marble floors to the towering chandeliers above. But as she approached the front desk, the luxury felt more like a barrier than an invitation. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the flutter in her chest as she stood before the receptionist, waiting for the usual exchange. But when the receptionist didn't look up, Maya's nerves only tightened. The receptionist, her eyes focused solely on the screen in front of her, didn't offer the usual polite greeting. She didn't ask about Maya's journey or wish her a pleasant stay. The coldness of the woman's demeanor was enough to make Maya hesitate, but she pushed forward. explaining her reservation, showing the confirmation email. And then came the words Maya hadn't expected. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it seems there's no room available for you tonight." The sentence hit her like a heavy weight. She was taken aback, her mind struggling to process it. She had confirmed everything weeks in advance. There had to be some mistake. As she tried to explain again, her voice soft but firm, the receptionist didn't flinch. She barely looked up, a cold expression on her face as she repeated, "Everything is fully booked, Mom. Maybe try again tomorrow." "I'm afraid there's nothing I can do." Maya's confusion turned to disbelief, then to embarrassment. She stood there, frozen for a moment, her heart racing in her chest. Her face reddened slightly as she tried to gather her thoughts, but no matter how hard she tried, the words just didn't make sense. She had a reservation. She was supposed to stay here. Her hands shook slightly as she clutched her suitcase, the weight of the situation sinking in. The luxury around her, once dazzling, now seemed cold, unwelcoming. The experience felt wrong, everything about it felt off. The rejection stung in a way she couldn't explain. It wasn't just the denial of her room, it was the way she was dismissed, the way she was made to feel invisible, as if she didn't matter at all. The lack of empathy from the receptionist, the coldness of her words, the indifference it all felt like a slap in the face. Maya wasn't one to make a scene. She wasn't one to raise her voice or argue, especially not in a situation like this. She felt the sting of humiliation, but she quietly stepped aside. Her thoughts were a blur as she pulled out her phone. She needed someone to help, someone who could tell her this wasn't how things were supposed to be. With shaky hands, she dialed X's number. Her heart was pounding in her chest as the phone rang, each passing second stretching longer than the last. She wasn't sure if it was the unfairness of the situation or the unexpected loneliness she felt, but her voice trembled when he finally answered. She didn't want to burden him. She didn't want to seem weak, but she needed him. Alex's voice on the other end of the phone was a steady anchor. He was calm, reassuring, just as she needed him to be. She explained what had happened, how she'd been turned away, how the receptionist had barely looked at her or given her the time of day. And in that moment, Maya felt like a weight had been lifted. She wasn't alone anymore. She didn't have to figure this out on her own. Alex listened, and his response was simple but certain. "Stay right there, Maya. I'm coming. Don't worry. I'll handle it." His words were the comfort she needed, the reassurance that no matter how this would unfold, it would be okay. He was coming to take care of it. And with that, the knot in her stomach began to loosen, just a little. Though Maya didn't want to admit it, she had been shaken by the entire experience. She was a woman who prided herself on independence, on handling things on her own. But in this moment, in the face of a cold, dismissive rejection, she realized she couldn't always do it alone. She didn't always have to. Alex was there for her, and in that moment, that was all that mattered. As she stood in the lobby, waiting for Alex, Maya knew this wouldn't be just another story in her life. This moment would mark the beginning of something larger, something beyond the quiet life she had built for herself. It wasn't about the hotel, or even the injustice she had faced. It was about what Alex's response would reveal. It was about the strength of their relationship, and the lengths he would go to for her. Alex arrived swiftly, his presence immediately commanding attention as he entered the lobby of the Regent Palace Hotel. With every step he took, the air seemed to shift. Staff members glanced up, their eyes widening as they recognized who he was. In a place where wealth and power were often flaunted, Alex moved with quiet confidence, his every movement sure and deliberate. Maya had no idea what Alex would do next, but deep down she knew one thing: he would make things right. In a world where billionaires and the ultra-wealthy ruled, Alex Thompson was a name that carried weight. But in that moment, it wasn't his wealth that mattered. This wasn't about money. This was about respect. As Alex approached the front desk, the receptionist, who had earlier turned Maya away with such coldness, faltered. She looked up, her expression shifting to one of surprise. Alex stood tall before her, his posture unyielding. He didn't need to speak loudly. His presence spoke volumes, filling the room with an undeniable authority. His voice, when it came, was calm, controlled, yet firm. Without a hint of hesitation, Alex stated what needed to be done. "I need to book every room on this floor, now." The words hung in the air, cutting through the tension in the lobby like a sharp blade. The receptionist's eyes widened in disbelief. She had never been asked something so bold. Her fingers hesitated above the keyboard, the request too unusual, too far outside the realm of normal procedures. But Alex didn't wait for her to figure it out. His voice, steady and unyielding, followed immediately. "I'm sure you can," Alex said. "Every room. I'm sure your system can handle it." There was no doubt in his tone. No hesitation. His confidence was absolute, and the receptionist, unable to respond, simply stood there, caught off guard by the sheer force of his request. The room seemed to grow still as Alex's words reverberated through the lobby. The receptionist was flustered, glancing nervously at the hotel manager who had stepped forward, sensing the gravity of the situation. The manager, too, felt the shift in the air. In his years of managing the hotel, he had dealt with high-profile guests before, but never someone like Alex. His eyes scanned Alex's face, searching for any signs of anger or frustration, but found none. Instead, there was just an unwavering calm. The hotel manager quickly moved toward Alex, trying to regain control of the situation. But it was clear that Alex had already taken charge. The manager apologized profusely, his words rushing out in an attempt to smooth things over, to reassure Alex that the inconvenience would be rectified. But it wasn't about apologies. It was about action. Alex wasn't interested in pleasantries, he was interested in results. With a small nod, Alex acknowledged the manager's words, but his eyes never left the staff. He wasn't going to accept any further delays, any more excuses. "Ensure my wife is taken care of, and make sure this never happens again." His voice, though calm, carried the weight of someone who had made up his mind. There was no room for negotiation, no space for more apologies. This was about making sure that Maya, his wife, was treated with the respect she deserved. With those words, the atmosphere in the lobby shifted completely. The staff, who had once seemed so certain of their position, now moved with purpose, their actions quickening. The manager directed the receptionist to start the process immediately, ensuring that every room on the floor would be cleared for Alex's request. There was no resistance. There was no hesitation. In that moment, the power of Alex's presence had done what words alone could not. It had brought about immediate change. Alex stood there for a moment longer, watching as the staff scrambled to meet his demands. His expression remained unchanged, his focus steady. This wasn't a display of power for the sake of power. It wasn't about the money or the status of the hotel. It was about doing what was right. It was about making sure that no one, least of all his wife, would be treated with anything less than the utmost respect. And in that moment, Alex's calm demeanor, his quiet strength, spoke louder than anything else could have. Maya stood in the suite, still in disbelief. The room was nothing short of breathtaking, a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows offering an unparalleled view of the city below. The skyline stretched out before her like a sea of lights, each one a symbol of the world she wasn't used to. The suite was lavish, filled with opulent touches, plush furniture, soft lighting, the kind of luxury she'd never experienced. Yet, as she stood there, the grandeur of it all didn't seem to matter. It wasn't the room that had caught her attention, it was the gesture, the reason behind it all. Alex hadn't just booked a room for her. He had booked every room on that floor, a decision that ensured that no one could ever make Maya feel less than she was worth. Not because of the money, not because of the luxury, but because of something far deeper. It was his love for her, his loyalty to her, that drove his actions. In Alex's world, Maya was irreplaceable, and he wasn't going to allow her to be disrespected in any way, not by anyone, especially not in a place like this. The suite, with its elegant furnishings and incredible view, felt almost like a dream to Maya. She walked over to the bed, her fingers trailing across the soft fabric of the sheets, her mind still processing everything that had happened. She had never asked for this. She never expected it. The luxury, the grand gesture, none of it had been her request. But it was here, and it was his way of showing her just how much she meant to him. And yet, a part of her still felt uncertain. As she sat down on the bed, her emotions swirled inside her like a storm. Confusion, gratitude, a little bit of guilt, all mixed together in a quiet, overwhelming rush. She had always prided herself on her independence, on being self-sufficient. But in this moment, surrounded by the richness of Alex's gesture, she felt vulnerable, unsure of how to respond to something so grand, so unexpected. Maya looked at Alex, who had followed her into the suite, and now sat beside her on the bed. He reached out, taking her hand gently in his. There was a softness in his eyes, a tenderness that melted away the confusion, even if just a little. Maya could feel the sincerity in his touch, the deep affection that drove every word, every action. His calm presence was a balm for the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She didn't know what to say, so she spoke softly, almost as if she were trying to make sense of it all. "You didn't have to do this, Alex," she whispered, her voice quiet but laden with emotion. "I would have been fine somewhere else." But Alex, ever steady, never wavered in his conviction. He looked at her with those unwavering eyes, the ones that had always shown her nothing but respect and love. His voice was calm, steady, and anchored to her storm of feelings. "I did it because you're worth it, Maya." His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that reached deep into her heart. "I don't care about the hotel, the money, or the luxury. I care about you." In that moment, everything Maya had feared, everything she had been uncertain about, faded away. It wasn't the luxury that mattered. It wasn't the rooms or the grand gesture. What mattered was that Alex had shown her, in his own way, that she was worth every bit of it. He had put her above all else, above the hotel, above the wealth, above everything that so often defined people in their world. And for the first time in her life, Maya realized that someone could love her in a way that wasn't bound by what she could give or what she could accomplish. It wasn't about impressing anyone, about fitting into the world that so often judged people by their status. It was about love, pure, unadulterated love that valued her for exactly who she was. As she sat there, hand in hand with Alex, Maya felt a deep sense of peace wash over her. The confusion and uncertainty that had clung to her like a heavy fog began to lift. In Alex's eyes, she saw not the glittering wealth of the hotel, but something far more valuable. She saw the depth of his commitment, the strength of his love, and the unwavering belief that she deserved to be treated with nothing less than the utmost respect. As Maya walked out of the suite, her footsteps light and measured, a calm smile spread across her face. The weight that had once settled on her shoulders, the confusion and the unease, had slowly lifted. She was no longer upset, no longer questioning the events that had unfolded. Instead, she was deeply moved not just by the luxury, but by the love and loyalty behind it. Alex had done more than just provide her with a room, or a floor full of rooms. He had shown her that sometimes love isn't about quiet gestures. Sometimes it's about standing firm when it matters most. Though Maya had never asked for extravagance, she realized that Alex's actions spoke far louder than any words ever could. He hadn't simply expressed his affection with fleeting compliments or grand promises. He had shown her, through a simple yet powerful act, that he would always stand by her side, no matter what. In that moment, Maya understood that true love was about more than gestures. It was about unwavering support when it counted the most. As Maya glanced at Alex, her eyes softened, filled with a deep, quiet gratitude. She had always valued the small moments, the fleeting, personal touches that made her feel seen and heard. But this was something else. This was an act that transcended any material thing she had ever experienced. It wasn't about the luxury or the grand scale of it all. It was about the meaning behind it, about the strength of his feelings for her and the commitment he had shown her. She looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with sincerity. "I didn't need a grand gesture, Alex. I needed you. But this means the world to me." In those few words, Maya expressed what had been building in her heart. It wasn't the opulence of the suite, nor the actions that had been taken to correct the hotel's mistake. It was the love and the loyalty behind those actions that touched her in ways nothing else could. Maya didn't need to be surrounded by wealth or material things to feel valued. All she had ever needed was Alex by her side, his presence and unwavering support reminding her every day of her worth. But in this moment, in the simplicity of those words, Maya knew she had found something truly irreplaceable. Alex smiled softly, his gaze meeting hers, filled with a quiet understanding. He didn't need to say anything more. The connection between them, the bond they shared, spoke volumes without uttering another word. It wasn't about what he could give her. It was about the trust, the respect, and the deep affection that was at the heart of everything he did. And for Maya, that was more than enough. As Maya and Alex walked down the corridor together, their laughter soft and genuine, the weight of the world seemed to fall away. The tension of the day, the uncertainties, the emotional roller coaster, it was all behind them now. They moved forward, side by side, in a quiet unity that needed no words. In the simple act of walking together, there was a shared understanding, an unspoken bond that grew stronger with each step. Sometimes love is about doing what's right, no matter the cost. Alex's gesture hadn't been about proving something to anyone. It wasn't a display of power or wealth, nor was it a need to impress the world. It was about proving something far more significant to Maya, that she was worth protecting, worth respecting, and worth more than any material thing in the world. For Alex, it wasn't the grand gestures that mattered. It was the quiet, unshakable conviction that Maya deserved the best no matter the circumstances. And in the end, that was the greatest gift of all, the reassurance that love wasn't about the things they could buy or the status they could achieve. It was about how they valued each other, how they made each other feel seen, understood, and respected. And in a world that often tried to define people by their wealth and achievements, Alex showed Maya that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought. They were earned in the way we care for one another, in the quiet, consistent acts of love and respect. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.